Welcome to Leadership Unlocked, an interview-style podcast providing insights on how to lead people. Proudly brought to you by Human Interactions Australia. Welcome to Leadership Unlocked. I'm really privileged to be able to interview someone completely different than those that we've interviewed over the last few months. So I'd like to welcome Carla Rossi-Zalmons from PWC. She's the Director of Private Clients of Strategy and Growth. So welcome along to the podcast.
Thank you, Craig. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about a plug for the business that you work for. Tell us about PWC.
Fantastic. Well, I think for me, this has been a journey around growth and development in the team. About a year ago, just as COVID hit, we realized that a lot of private businesses were kind of stuck with not knowing what is coming next for their business and for their growth. And as a team, we kind of rallied together to see how we can support those businesses with strategies that are going to make sense for the short term and the long term. And I think in the private market, there's this growing need for more sophistication around running a business. A lot of brilliant business owners are fantastic in terms of their ideas, but when their businesses grow, they kind of don't know how to take that next step.
Yep.
And as a firm who support private businesses with tax and accounting and advisory work, we saw a gap to help them with their business strategy and to give them the confidence as leaders to take that next step. So my role is to really work with private businesses of all shapes and sizes with my national team to deliver growth.
Wow. Okay, fantastic. So you said a national team. So how many are on board with you?
So we have presence in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Western Australia and Perth.
Yeah.
There are 3 directors, a partner, and we've got sort of a support team that sits below and expanding daily because we can't really respond to all the demand at the moment. So not a bad place to be.
So how do you manage that team across those different locations? What's some of the challenges, I guess, and what are some of the things that you find really work?
Yeah, well, I think the first ingredient is everyone in the team has a diverse background.
Yep.
So we've got a mixture of ex-lawyers, accountants, I'm a ex-CMO, strategists, tech, analytics, data, skills that kind of all work in, they're very complementary. So there's really not a sense of sort of internal power of control. Yeah. We all come together to bring the best to the client. And I think another ingredient is that we're all extremely authentic and sort of self-motivated. For us, it's not about working the longest hours. It's about delivering impact that matters for our clients and bringing that real energy. And I think that the last point, which is something that we talk about a lot in the team, is this concept of manifesting your reality. And what we mean by that is we know the private market is the backbone of the economy and the employment opportunities that it fosters. And we want to help these businesses grow. And we know as a team, if we can manifest success for these businesses, the success will come to us.
Yeah, right.
So we have this very strong belief in who we are, what we do, the value we add, and that seems to attract clients that want to emulate that in their own businesses. So it's a very interesting philosophy around leadership and very much has an entrepreneurial spirit about it, which is fantastic coming into Big Four. You can actually run your own business within the business, and we're really seeing sort of the results speak for themselves.
Fantastic. And then how the obvious question for most people, how did you handle that, handle your team through COVID? Obviously that created all sorts of changes for people, but how did you guys handle that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in a lot of teams will say, we got to know people at on a different level, a bit more personable.
Yeah.
We've always operated as a national business, so for us, that all those virtual communication tools and techniques wasn't new for us. I think we were just more mindful and put that care and empathy became most important. And I think everyone went through a series of self-discovery, personal discovery, that kind of impacted what they really wanted to do from a business point of view. So it was a good time to reflect. and to really sort of lean in together and come out stronger. But in my view, COVID was probably the pause and reflect, certainly, that our team needed. And I think a lot of businesses used that time, albeit uncertain, to pause and reflect.
Yeah, I think many did the same, right?
Yeah.
Many took time out and went, hang on, there's parts of what we're doing now through COVID that we probably should have been doing before.
Correct.
And saving a lot of money by doing that, right?
Yep.
And doing a lot of... So I hear an accent.
Yes.
So tell us your history. Where are you from?
Born in South Africa, Johannesburg.
Oh, yeah.
Immigrated 6 years ago. In fact, recently got my citizenship ceremony letter.
Congratulations.
And that will be on the 19th of May. So I'm excited to be officiated into the country, so no one can send me back now. So come from South Africa. I think for those of you who work with South Africans, you'll notice a huge sense of pride and work ethic.
Yeah, wow.
We wear our hearts on our sleeves, sometimes quite direct in our approach and manner, but certainly bring that authentic warmth. If you have ever visited South Africa, that you can feel. But yeah, I don't see my journey in Australia as being better. It's more a case of being different and contributing in a different way.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
So trying to bring the best of my cultural background and embrace the incredible diversity that the country has to offer now.
What's the word I've heard you guys say a lot? You must.
Yes, must.
There's not this you could think about or you should. Have you thought about it? You must do this.
You must do this, and I have chosen to. I choose to use those words wisely, but always with a smile in my voice. So I don't think people take it too seriously.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Tell me, what differences have you seen from managing people in South Africa and in Joburg? I've been to Joburg. It's an interesting town. Versus here. Are there differences, or people are just people and there's just cultural layers of onions around us? I
don't know. It could be a bit of both, and it could be just a change in time and a shift in how the world has changed. Certainly, my approach as a leader in South Africa was a lot more, well, not my approach, but the sort of norm was a lot more autocratic and dictatorial.
Yeah.
The you must, and people that worked with you liked that you're in control and you guiding the ship, and they felt comfort that there's direction.
Somebody leading it.
And if there's issues, Carla will come in and solve them. And that brings a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
What I find here in Australia is more collaborative. The diversity of cultures, I think, brings a lot of different viewpoints.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that breeds innovation better. If I had to compare that autocratic style to more that collaborative style, where everyone has a voice, no matter what level you are, every idea should be explored commercially to a point.
Yeah.
And you can really bring your flavor to a solution. And I think clients value that and pay money for that. Certainly in South Africa, we lived in a very stressful environment where, some days was literally life or death.
Yeah.
Are you going to get home today? I hope so. And therefore you kind of had to sort of build this sort of armor around you, to like a survival armor, and that kind of trickled into the culture.
Yeah.
Whereas Australia is very much around, it's a country for opportunity, give it a go. There isn't that sort of physical threat around survival. Certainly the financial burden of living in an expensive city like Sydney plays a different dynamic to stress. But from a culture point of view, I love the collaboration and I love the diversity.
It's hard I think it's hard for Aussies to fathom that. I know that I had an Aussie mate working in Joburg for some years, and I remember calling him one day and he was on the car phone, and I think some of the stories that had just happened literally in front of him were just horrendous, like hard to fathom.
It's hard to fathom. So, if somebody sort of complains, I missed my train, or the train was late and this is ridiculous. And I'm like, well, I can tell you what a real problem is. I think coming from South Africa, you come with a huge amount of humbleness and appreciation. I was very fortunate to grow up in a privileged society within South Africa, but 90% of those around me were not. Yeah. So it was very clear that sort of Gini coefficient of the haves and the have-nots, which makes me feel very appreciative every day that I get into the office, albeit I have a I work in one of the leading firms in the world, I don't ever take that for granted.
Yeah.
And I think that shows through in my authenticity as a leader. It's not about ego and being the person in the room to say, I've got the solution. I struggle with the word I. I struggle. For me, we just comes naturally, whereas in South Africa, I was always kind of the precedent, and I've kind of sort of trained myself and prefer the we.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you find that the collaborative approach is slower, or are you able to, does it kind of get rid of the people in the background who don't really want to do it? You can kind of get it out in the open up front by having a collaborative conversation?
Yeah, it can slow innovation down because everyone needs to have a say, and you've got to circle back and reiterate and analyze. But I think ultimately it leads to a relationship that you build with your colleagues, with your clients, that is more long-lasting. And I just look at a lot of the sort of startups at the moment in the tech space in Australia that are just sort of, going guns blazing. And I would imagine a lot of their brilliant ideas came from a collaborative discussions and collaborative brainstorming, and they kind of, that energy sort of pushed them to the next level. So I think collaboration can be slower and counterintuitive when you get stuck and go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So sometimes it takes a person to say, okay, we're going down a rabbit hole, let's pull it back and let's keep focused. So I think you just need to have that sort of ability to call it when it needs to be
That's
called.
the danger, isn't it? The rabbit hole.
The rabbit holes are the danger. Yeah.
So what are you, if you're happy to be a little, vulnerable and share some stories.
Yes.
What are some things you've done that as a manager, or a leader in your career, maybe it was earlier on in the career, not now, have you done where you went, oh, wish I hadn't have done that, or that just didn't quite work?
Yeah, I think one that comes to mind, I joined one of the leading investment banks in South Africa as a CMO. I was the youngest in my team, and I was thinking, how am I going to get anyone to kind of take me as serious?
Sure.
And how am I going to get the executive to understand the power of marketing and brand, which was my role. So it was our first leadership team meeting, and the managing executive of the investment bank introduced me, and these are all, finance, CFA. He was actually literally a rocket scientist by trade that worked at NASA.
So it was rocket science.
My boss was a rocket scientist, and all these like sort of pale male faces staring at me, and he said, Carla, tell us, what are you going to bring to this business? And I then used the analogy of toilet paper.
Right.
And I said, well, we're a premium investment bank. Why is it that we have single-ply toilet paper in our bathrooms when clients come in? I said, the brand is not just about the logo on the door. It's about every touch point that you have. We should be having at least triple ply. And of course, everyone laughed. And I'm thinking to myself,
what have you done?
I don't know if I want to be known as the toilet paper girl. I'm not sure this is a career-limiting move, but I had to say something bold to make them realize, if you want me to add value to your business, you need to trust that I know what I'm doing and that I understand the concept of building a great brand. And it's the people, it's the solutions, it's the technology, it's every touch point that makes a brand great and stand behind something. So I thought the toilet paper was going to catch the attention. I was fortunate. It definitely caught attention, so much so that the next week I got a call from the procurement manager to say, the managing executive has ordered for triple ply, and we now have to change all the toilet paper canisters, which is costing us, I forgot about the costs that are involved. But
well, you're marketing, so.
But we were dealing with, the Anglo-Americans of the world and billion-dollar deals. We had to get the toilet paper right. And from that day on, when I had a viewpoint and an idea, albeit it was a funny sort of analogy, my voice was heard. So it was a moment where I thought, oh gosh, I'm going down the toilet now. This is my moment, but I took a leap of faith.
So it's interesting because you used the word trust, right?
Yeah.
So they had to trust what you were saying.
Yeah.
How important is trust for you in leadership role?
Oh, I mean, it's everything. If you don't have trust, you kind of don't really have relationships, in my view. And I think with trust, it's the hardest thing to build and the easiest thing to break.
Yeah.
And it's something that you can't just build and think it's there. You kind of got to always have to work on it. I think trust also comes with being okay to be uncomfortable about something and saying it.
Yeah.
And being okay to not be okay and communicating that to your
You've
team.
got to provide an environment where it's
Totally.
okay to say something and it's not okay.
Correct.
Maybe not the toilet paper, but
Maybe not the toilet paper.
but that to provide an environment where somebody can be happy enough and willing enough and bold enough to say something and not be judged by that statement.
Absolutely. And I think, insecurities that we all have, including myself, is, am I being judged? Am I saying the right thing? And a lot of people will say to me, but you present so well, you speak so well, you're so confident in your ideas. There are often moments where I get nervous and I think, is someone going to judge me? And
Sure.
it's something I've learned to work on. It's okay to have a view that maybe not everyone agrees with, or even if it to be the wrong view. But you don't know until you try.
And it's how you put it across, right?
100%.
So
Yeah, it's how you articulate it.
If you're not articulating it in a way that's not, well, if you're articulating it in a way that's not arrogant or so forth, then
Yep.
more likely to be. This is going to be the toilet paper podcast, isn't it?
Oh dear. And of course, when the toilet paper crisis happened during COVID, my colleagues had to text me
Of
to
course
say,
they did.
we remembered that day you stood up in front of us and told us how to build a brand, so there you go.
How funny is that? How funny is that? So what are some of your key leadership philosophies now?
Yep.
When you think about leadership, if you were working with somebody or mentoring somebody, what are some things that you'd harp on?
Yeah, I would say I've got maybe 3 or 4.
Let's go. Give them to me.
The first would be tap into your EQ.
Emotional intelligence.
Your emotional intelligence. There are a lot of very smart people around, but I think that EQ really enables you to influence in a powerful way. Some people have more natural EQ than others, but I do believe if you're conscious of it and have that ability to have good listening skills, you can develop your EQ, and that brings authenticity. So the first would be to be conscious that your EQ is a very powerful tool. Use it.
I was only reading an article this week, in fact, about the ideal team player, and they talked about the person being smart. But exactly what you just said. Not smart necessarily intellectually. Yes, that's kind of a given, but are they smart around people? Are they aware of what they're saying and when they're saying it and who they're saying it to? Because that's the EQ, that's the emotional intelligence, right, that we talk about.
And with EQ, I think, comes strong listening skills. You don't, as a leader, you don't always have to be the loudest in the room. There's a lot of power in being in stillness and being quiet and listening. And when you do have something to say, people will listen. So I'm certainly learning that sort of shift in my style. It's okay not to be the voice all the time. You gain a lot of respect and trust from others, and you allow others to have a voice and be part of the conversation.
I run these roundtable discussion groups for businesses, and there was a gentleman who unfortunately has passed since, but he was in one of my groups, and I wondered what this 74-year-old man could get out of this group. And he would be sitting there, and he'd be sitting there, and he'd be sitting there, and all of a sudden he'd say something, but whenever he opened his mouth, pure gold.
And you couldn't hear a pin.
Couldn't hear a pin drop, and it was just, the timing was perfect. It's just like, I didn't know him well. I know his son better, but I admire this man. He just knew when to say what he needed to say.
And I think that's incredibly powerful. You know when to dial it up and when to dial it down. So if you can be conscious of your quietness and your listening skills, very powerful. So that would be the first
You were
one.
quite extroverted too,
Yes.
so that's actually not that easy to do
Not
as
easy
well.
for someone like me.
I'm extroverted as well.
I learned to just hold it back, and it's not something that comes naturally to me.
Yeah.
But you can train yourself.
So this is the point, right? You can,
Totally.
it's learned behaviour, so you can learn if you want to.
Absolutely. It's just being aware of there's a time and a place for exuberance and, the big ideas, the big energy. There is a time and a place, and if that's who you are, don't shy away from it. But there's also a lot of power in that quietness, in that moment. You also enable yourself to listen better and to absorb better, which is the EQ.
Yeah, we use a tool called Agile EQ, which is this ability to be agile, be flexible, and it doesn't mean not being authentic, but it's being able to respond differently in different spaces.
Absolutely.
And it's a very powerful tool. So authenticity you talked about, I think that's your second one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
talk to me about
just
that.
Be yourself. So for those who know me, I definitely have a irreverent nature. I've lots of energy, sometimes some crazy ideas, but I think that diversity brings energy.
Yeah.
Obviously in an appropriate way.
Sure.
But be yourself. I don't, when I look at a team dynamic or a team composition, I don't want clones. I want to work with people that have got different energies, different ideas, different styles. I think, when I have a workshop or a team meeting, I often sort of reflect just straight after to say, what did I love about every single person's role in that meeting? I loved the way she showed care in that way. I loved the way, he sort of just posed a question at the right time, and how could I do that differently? So I think be yourself, don't shy away from it, particularly in the private market where private businesses is all about, the founder, the family, the putting everything into growing something and making something special. People really relate to that, and right up through to the big corporates. People are people at the end of the day,
absolutely.
Right?
So I interviewed Simon McGrath from Accor Hotels last week, and he's in the next podcast as well, or in the last podcast. And he talked exactly the same. He said his error as a leader was he cloned. He had these teams that looked exactly the same as him, and it wasn't until he really learned that actually was only good for a period of time. And after a certain time, nothing kind of went anywhere with these teams. They weren't really achieving what was required, and he had to get this diversity. And we're seeing that more, right? Inclusion and diversity is out there.
It's very topical. It's very top of mind.
Yeah.
It's okay to be yourself. And I actually think Australia, culture-wise, is leading that conversation.
Yeah.
If I look at colleagues that work in the US, in the UK, in Europe, I think, the country's philosophy of giving it a go really shines through in the workplace, in my view.
I don't have the content, but I've actually written it down in one of my notes. There's a book title. It's called Be Yourself, because everybody else is taken.
I love it.
I think that's so cool.
I love it.
Well, there's a song, right? I think.
Well, there couldn't be two of us in this world.
That's
Could you
right.
imagine, Craig?
That'd be out of control. That's for sure. Okay, so we've done 2 out of the 4. What's your third one?
As I said, third one is culture-led. Do what you say, and know when to lead from the front, but also lead from behind. And to know that you are bigger than one, your team is bigger than one person.
Okay.
And what I mean by that, and I think it links back to the EQ, know when to let your team shine and step up. So we've recently employed a senior consultant who's joined the Sydney practice to work with me, and she's never done the kind of work that we're doing. And I've been inviting her to all our client meetings. She even participated in a pitch, and she said, "Are you sure you want me to be here? What can I add?" I said, everything about your being is going to add value and show the client how we team. Because if we team together, he's going to want us teaming with him.
Yeah.
So I think that is really important. Do what you say. You're bigger than one person. And I think the successful leader is one where the team can function without you.
Yeah.
Like, work me out of a job, please.
Yeah.
Then I know I've done a good job.
I've heard the term shared leadership. This idea that everybody's got this part to play in the leadership and making decisions and making roles.
And I think it's not easy in all organizations. I'm very fortunate at PWC. That's very much one of the values of the organization. So it is easier to sort of practice that, but there's no reason why you can't shift that sort of dynamic in your team by sharing those responsibilities.
I'm big on, and I'm not great at this, but I'm big on it, is humility. And I guess the silly example perhaps is my daughter can sing. She's got a fantastic voice.
She really can sing, Craig.
She's got a gorgeous voice. And we watch, some of these shows, these entertaining shows, and it's the people that come on that are actually humble are the ones that have really got the talent, and it's far better than those that not. They're not that tryhards. They're talented, but they're not as talented as the humble ones. I'm trying to teach that in her, but maybe I'm indirectly trying to teach myself to be more humble as well.
Well, I think the humbleness, for me, the humbleness and the authenticity kind of goes together.
Yeah.
I think in the good old days, you know, there was all these theories of tall poppy syndrome and, you know, climbing the corporate ladder. It fostered quite an aggressive style.
Yeah.
I don't think that's looked upon in any light nowadays.
Yeah.
For me, humble and confidence can actually live very well together. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. What's your fourth one?
This is probably my best one.
Oh.
We were in a sort of a team strategy session last week, and we were speaking about our values as a team and what do we want to be known for, what is the legacy we want to leave, and we spoke about this notion of, you know, we want to be a high-performing team, and that's who we are. And I kind of stopped and challenged that. And you know, for me, when you say high-performing, which is definitely a buzzword and seems to just be part of a lot of organizational values, it implies work hard, play hard, long hours, long nights, you know, burn the midnight oil, do it at all costs. For me, those days are over.
Yeah.
For me, the shift is to more that being impact driven. You can have drive and make an impact and still demonstrate quality and brilliance. High performing, I think, conjures up an old style of leadership and an old world where mental well-being is kind of pushed aside. So my challenge to the team was, let's lead by example and change the narrative around this high-performing culture to an impact-driven culture, and that gives everyone the opportunity to build something special versus trying to just always like race in one direction. So that would be my last one, my second last one.
It's a big thing, isn't it? The big companies. I know friends of ours was working at one of the major banks here in the city, opposite where we are right now, and she ended up moving into the city because the travel home was, you know, only 45, 50 minutes, but every day at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night was just horrendous.
Yep.
Is that what, if that's a high-performing team, well,
I don't want
then
to
it's
see
win
people,
at all costs, isn't it?
You know, if you're working till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock every night just to get a job done, either there's some efficiencies in the delivery model, or there's unrealistic expectations, or you're fostering a culture of more is more.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, if you do the analysis, and that would probably be a brilliant study, which culture is more successful? If you were looking at it as a revenue level, from a retention level, in terms of career development, I would be very surprised if high impact ticks all those boxes consistently and sustainably.
Yeah, I think the sustainable piece is the piece, right? And it's not, from as you say, from an employee well-being perspective, why are there so many people going, I don't like my job?
And I've worked in this high-impact world, and I don't want to do it anymore. It's compromised my well-being.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, you're always on edge.
Well, you just and you sort of get this adrenaline in you that which kind of doesn't stop, and you sort of need the adrenaline when you've really got a deadline, you've got to push for something. But this adrenalized sort of buzz that goes in all the time, in circles through your body, and that flight or fright stage that you can't be in that all the time,
no, it's not good for you.
You will burn out.
Interesting. That's interesting. Number 5.
The last one is more fun. I think the world is very serious. Yes, there are some very serious, concerning challenges we face as society, so I'm not putting any dampener on that. But I think as a leader, you spend a lot of your time, of your life in your work environment. Have some fun.
Yeah.
It's okay to laugh at each other, with each other.
Yeah.
Clients love it. You know, clients like to love the energy. So for me, got to have fun.
I love today because I've turned up. I'm in the PWC office. It's a beautiful office. There's great views, and it's all very proper. Then you walk through. You've got your leopard style jacket on with your matching leopard style shoes, which is amazing. And I recall there's a lady that I see every Wednesday evening that works at an opposition firm of yours who is in the same suit every Wednesday.
Really?
She's in the same coloured and it is a boring colour. It's a boring coloured suit. It's a boring coloured shoe, and she's in that all the time. And I go, wow, is that what the culture of that organisation is?
Well, if I had to take you down to our client floors, it's all happening.
Nice.
You know, I mean, obviously there's a time and a place to put the suit, jacket and tie,
Sure.
but those days have also gone, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely have fun with what you love. If it's fashion, give it a go.
Yeah. You're giving it a go today.
I'm giving it a go, and I'm fine about that.
3 tips. 3 tips. If you were up in front of a crowd of new leaders, 3 tips.
Yep.
What would you say to them?
The first would be, don't be afraid to try something different.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
Even if you're uncomfortable about it.
We're back to the toilet story.
Yeah, but don't go that far.
Yeah, sure.
So don't be afraid to try something different. You'll be surprised.
Okay, good.
Manage your own energy levels.
Yeah, nice.
I think leaders are expected to deal with, you know, you get hopefully paid more to deal with certain more stresses. So there is a lot of stress that comes with being a leader. Manage your own energy levels. You cannot be on all the time, even though it's expected.
Yeah, Steve Hinks, the director of the Western Plains Zoo up at Taronga, up at Dubbo, he said that in his podcast, is that through COVID, he recognised that his own energy was failing or flailing, and so he had to pick that back up. So that was a massive learning for him to be aware of that.
It's okay to be off, and it's okay to say to your colleagues, I'm a bit tired today.
Yeah.
I just need some quiet space.
Yeah.
I just need to recharge.
Yeah, right.
We're all human.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be definitely number 2.
Number 3.
And number 3, I would say, is realize the power of generosity. And what I mean by that is, you can be generous with your time. Is a very time is not a commodity. I think we realize it's a precious mineral resource. Be generous with your time. Be generous with who you give your time to, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Because that can also take you down rabbit holes that actually don't drive that impact.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I think time for me is something that I hold dear, and be precious and care and considered as how you use it and give it and receive it.
Nice. Fantastic tips. So we're sitting opposite the Star Casino.
Yes.
And I see that the big sign for Hamilton's
yes,
up
I'm
there.
looking at it.
And you're a bit of a musical fan,
yes,
I hear.
Yes.
So in finishing, give me your top 3 musicals that you've ever seen in the world.
Well, not Hamilton yet.
You're missing out.
So
it's
I think
outstanding.
I'm missing out. Top 3 would be Les Mis. I love Cats.
Oh.
And a lot of people like
Yes.
Cats. Really?
Yeah, interesting.
I love Cats. And the other one would be, you're really pushing me here.
Yeah.
The last one, which is more demure, is Miss Saigon.
Oh, yes. What an amazing show that is.
A different tempered musical,
Yeah.
but beautiful.
I think you will love Hamilton because of the historical
Yes.
value that
Yes.
it gives. When you've got 9-year-old kids being able to tell you who the first president of America
Love
is,
it.
that there's layers
Shift,
that happen in
yeah.
that thing, which is awesome. Carla, what a delight to have
Thank
you.
you.
So
Thank
much
you
fun.
for having me. I look forward to the results.
Yeah, well, this will be out. It'll be out in about 6 or 8 weeks. We'll have this out and ready to go. So I'll let you know when it's on.
Wonderful.
Thanks for your time.